Have you ever wondered how people really, truly build a scalable income online? I'm not talking about that passive income fantasy, but a real, genuine business. Well, today we're going to break down an expert's framework that shows you exactly how it's done, step by step. So, yeah, let's just dive right in. First things first, let's just get this out of the way. The guy behind this whole framework, Dan Martell, he starts by just blowing up the biggest myths out there. There's no magic button, there's no get-rich-quick scheme. Building something that lasts takes a real process. But the good news, that process is way simpler than you probably think. And that leads us to the big question, right? If you don't have a million followers and you're not some tech genius who can build all these complicated sales funnels, how do you even start? How do you turn what you know into actual income? That is exactly what we are going to unpack right now. To get there, we have to start by tackling the single biggest myth that holds people back. I mean, this is the one thing that makes most people just quit before they even really get started. You see it all the time, right? You feel like you need that little blue checkmark next to your name and hundreds of thousands of followers just to make a dent. It feels like this huge numbers game where only the accounts with massive followings can win. But what if I told you that's just completely wrong? Get this. This is what one person, a guy named Mike Brown, made in his very first year. And he only had 6,000 followers. This proves a super important point. It is not about the size of your audience. It's about the connection you have with the right audience. A small, super engaged group of people is worth so much more than a massive crowd that doesn't really care. So, if it's not about a huge audience, then how do you build that valuable connection? Well, it all comes down to this really simple but powerful system our source calls the two-engine model. Let's break down what that actually means. Okay, think about your online business like it's a car. It needs an engine to go anywhere, right? Well, in this model, you actually need two. You need one engine that's just focused on attracting the right people, and then you need a second engine that's all about turning that attention into actual sales. Most people only focus on one or the other, and that's exactly why they get stuck. So you can see the two engines right here. You've got the magnet. Its whole job is to pull in your ideal customer by giving them super valuable content. Then you've got the money engine, which takes over from there. And that's the simple, direct process of turning that interest into a sale. When you get both of these engines running smoothly, that's when your business really starts to move. But here's the thing. Before you can attract anybody, you have to know exactly who you're looking for. This is the absolute foundation of the whole system, and honestly, it's where most people go completely wrong. And this is the key. It's not about demographics, age, location, all that stuff. It's about empathy. When a potential customer feels like you get their struggle on a really deep level, maybe even better than they can articulate it themselves, they instantly trust you. They see you as the person with the solution. That's it. Trust is built right there in that moment. So how do you get that deep understanding? You've got to ask these kinds of questions. What are they thinking about but not saying out loud? What are the real roadblocks, not just the excuses they give? And my favorite one, what are they secretly typing into Google at 2 in the morning? The answers to these questions, that's your roadmap for creating content that people actually connect with. Okay, so once you know who you're talking to and exactly what they're struggling with, it's time to build that magnet engine we talked about. This next stage uses that deep customer understanding to create content that actually gets seen. Now, this is a total game changer. A few years ago on social media, your reach was all about your social graph, basically how many followers you had. But today, it's all about the interest graph. And this shift happened for a simple reason. The platforms just want to keep you on their app longer. So the algorithm's only job is to find great content and show it to people who will find it interesting no matter who posted it. This completely levels the playing field for everyone. So how do you make content that the algorithm loves? You follow this dead simple formula, PSL, point, story, lesson. You start with the point, that specific problem you already figured out in stage 1. Then you tell a story. This is the emotional glue that makes it stick. It can be your story, a client's story, whatever. And finally, you give them the lesson, a simple, actionable tip that gives them a quick win and builds that all-important trust. And if you're sitting there thinking, okay, but I have no idea what to post, don't even worry. You can literally use a prompt just like this one in ChatGPT. Just plug in your niche and the problem you solve, and boom, it'll spit out a list of 25 content ideas already structured in that PDSL format. It's an incredible way to get started, like right now. Okay, so your magnet engine is up and running, you're making great content, you're tracking your perfect buyer. Now it's time to fire up that money engine. This is where we turn conversations into customers, and it all happens right in your DMs. Now, I know what you're thinking. Starting a sales chat sounds kind of awkward, right? But it doesn't have to be. Here are 3 super simple ways to do it. For every new follower, you can just send a this or that message. Hey, are you here for the free content, or are you looking for specific help with X? You can also do what are called hand raiser posts, asking people to DM you a keyword. And finally, just ask a qualifying question early on so you're not wasting your time with people you can't actually help. Now, this next part is maybe the most important mindset shift you can make. When someone tells you their problem, your gut instinct is probably to be a cheerleader and say, "You got this, you can do it." Don't do that. Instead, be a doctor. Ask questions, dig deeper, diagnose the real root of the problem. When you can show them what's really causing their pain, you build massive authority and trust. This brings us to this really cool psychological concept called the buy zone. See, people only buy when they're in this specific state of mind. They're not too scared to take action, but they're also not so overconfident that they don't think they need help. If someone has a really low confidence, your job is to reframe their worries as a strength. But if they're overconfident, you need to gently ask questions that reconnect them to their pain and remind them why they reached out to you in the first place. So let's put it all together. It really boils down to these 4 rules for getting the order. We've talked about the first 2. Then you present a super simple, crystal clear offer. Remember, a confused buyer never buys. And finally, when the time is right, you just ask for the order. Have your payment link ready to go and make it as easy as possible for them to say yes. And if you're sitting there thinking, okay, but does this chat selling thing actually work for, high ticket stuff? Well, get this. Our source, Dan Martell, has personally sold over $6 million of his own services using this exact method, just chatting with people on Instagram. This is not theory. It's a proven, scalable model that works. And there you have it. That's the entire model. From finding your perfect buyer, to creating viral content that attracts them, to closing sales right there in your DMs, you now have the complete step-by-step plan. So the only question left is, what problem are you going to solve for someone first?